Morning, all of you. So today we are going to discuss on flocculation. So we were discussing about the downstream processing. So this is one among the downstream processing steps. So it falls under the category of separation of insolubles. So this is the first step, is it? Separation of insolubles, where we are trying to separate the cells or other solid particles which are insoluble in the fermented broth. So that is the initial step in our downstream processing. So the first thing what we have to remember here is normally the solid particles or the cells, they will be kept apart in the suspension because of the electrostatic repulsion. So where you can see the GIF images here, which is showing the electrostatic repulsion between the cell, the repulsion that is taking place between the cell because of the same charge, that is the negative charge that is present on the cell surface, make them not to come closer by repel from each other. Now you can see a down image. What it is showing is the formation of visible yeast flocculant. So this is actually yeast flocculant. So where you will be able to see the formation of yeast flocculation. Normally, we all know that yeast, it is microscopic, but here you are able to see the yeast flocculant formation because of the formation of flocks. So, one second, I'll go to the full screen. So normally flocculation is a two-step process where the particle aggregation will be taking place and it will be forming a larger flux. Initially, I told you that consider these are your cells or your solid particle which is having the similar charges on their surface. So this similar charges that is present on the surface causes the electrostatic repulsion. Now, what we are trying to do is we are trying to neutralize the charges by addition of certain chemicals, which include the coagulant. So we will be adding a chemical coagulant. It can be an organic or an inorganic or a polymer-based compound, which we are adding, which will be neutralizing or which will be masking the negative charge that is present and making them to come close. So normally any flocculation process when you observe, it will have two sequential events. So it is a two-step process. As I mentioned, flocculation is a two-step particle aggregation process. So in flocculation, what is going to happen is particle aggregation is going to happen. And when the particles are aggregating, they will form initially they will form a smaller particle, and these smaller particles will further aggregate to form a larger visible macro flux. And as I mentioned, these involve a two-step process, which we call it as a coagulation and flocculation. So we will see more details about the process of flocculation in the coming slide. So two steps. The first one, coagulation, followed by the flocculation. So what happens during the coagulation? During coagulation, what happens is we are adding a chemical called coagulant. Maybe you all are familiar with the alum, is it? Aluminum sulfate. For what we are using, for water purification we are using, even in our household purpose to purify your water, we are adding it to our wells, etc. So what's happening when you are adding the aluminum sulfate is going to mask or it is going to react. A kind of chemical interaction is going to happen there. So coagulation is a kind of chemical process which will be neutralizing the charges and making the particles, it can be the cell or the solid particles, to aggregate together and causing their settling. So that process we will be calling it as the coagulation. So during coagulation, the small particles, which usually carries the negative surface charges that hinder the aggregation and settling, will be masked there. And this masking will be helping them to come closer. Okay, and they will be ultimately forming the aggregate. which we call it as a coagulant. So coagulation purely it's a chemical process. Now coming to the next step, flocculation. During flocculation, what we are doing is we are giving a gentle mixing. So already the coagulation is happened there. So you will be able to see small visible floc formations. Now these flocs are small. They will not settle down. Still it will be floating. Now to make them settle, their density we need to increase. For that, what we are trying to do is we are further allowing them to agglomerate, further allowing them to aggregate together. So this agglomerization need to happen. For that, what we are doing is we are increasing the collision. How we can increase the collision? We can do a gentle mixing there. So when we do a gentle mixing, the collision between the particles will be increasing. So flocculation requires a gentle mixing, and we also incorporate agents called as the flocculant. So two ways are there to enhance the process of flocculation. One is gentle mixing. The second thing is incorporation of compounds called as the flocculant. Usually they are the polymeric flocculants. So when you add the polymeric flocculant and giving a gentle mixing, there will be bridging between the small flocs that is formed. Okay. And that bridging will be making them a larger agglomerization. So as I mentioned, coagulation will be destabilizing the colloidal particle by neutralizing their surface charges and making them to aggregate together. And in flocculation, what is happening? It is a agglomerization process where the smaller aggregate that is formed as a result of coagulation will be coming together. And they will be forming a particle which is called as the floc or the flax. So these are the two names that is denoted, floc formation or the flax. These two, you will be able to see these two names in literatures. Now, these flocs are later separated either using flotation technique or using the sedimentation or filtration or centrifugation. So here you will be able to see it should animate. Why it's not animating, I'm not very sure. Excuse me. Sure. You all are able to see the slide? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Hello, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, now it's moving. Yeah. So this is what we were talking, that the Brownian moments we were talking is the random collision of particles that can be possible within a solution. So here you will be able to see that, the random collision. But in that random collision, the similar charged particles will not come and colloid each other. They repel each other. So now what we are trying to do is, so that is what you are able to see here. So the particles which are smaller, especially which are smaller than 0.1 micrometer in size, they are continuously in motion due to the electrostatic repulsion. Now, what we are trying to do is, when you try to neutralize the charges, they start colloiding each other, and they will form a particle which is called as the microfloc. They will form a smaller aggregate which is called as the microfloc. So microfloc formation will be happening there. So microfloc formation will be happening. That is the first step. So when the microfloc formation will be taking place? When we do the coagulation. So when you add the coagulant and when you do the mixing, in the coagulation also there will be mixing will be there, a continuous mixing will be there. At a high RPM we will be doing the mixing. So you'll be having the coagulation chamber. So in the coagulation chamber, you'll be taking your fermented broth and you will be adding the coagulant and you will be doing the mixing. So during this mixing, due to the collision, there will be what will happen is the formation of microfloc will be taking place. Now, we are either adding the flocculant or we are providing the gentle mixing to combine these microflocs. I told the microflocs are still smaller in size, microscopic in size. Now what we need to do is we need to make them as a larger flocks, which can sediment to the bottom or which can be easily separated through centrifugation or through the filtration. So for that, we are doing the flocculation where we are adding the flocculant and we are providing the gentle mixing that will be leading into the formation of a visible flocs, which is called as macroflocs or the pin flocs. So in the case of floc formation, there are two continuous events. One is the first step is the formation of microfloc and the second step is the formation of macroflocs or the pin flocs. So hope you understood the concept of floc formation. So this is little more in detail what we are talking, the same concept. So I was telling you this particular concept in the first slide itself. During the coagulation, the surface charges are being masked and there will be the aggregation of smaller similar charged particles. This smaller flocs, we call it as a microfloc, is it? These are all the microflocs. Now these microflocs are still microscopic in size. Now what we need to do is we need to do the agglomerization. The agglomerization is nothing but the flocculation. For that, what we need to do, you need to add flocculant and also provide gentle mixing. So when you add the flocculant and provide the gentle mixing, what will happen? The bridging between the microflocs will be taking place, where you are able to see here one microfloc here and another microfloc here. The flocculant you have added, the string what is showing here is a flocculant which is bridging the microfloc. And more microflocs are bridged together and they are agglomerized. So this agglomerization leads into the formation of the visible macrofloc formation, where you are able to see the macrofloc formation here. So these are the sequential events that normally happen. Remember, this is purely a chemical reaction. That is, coagulation is a kind of chemical reaction that is going to take place. But flocculation is a kind of a physical interaction. So this is a chemical interaction and this is a physical interaction. So that is the difference between the coagulation and flocculation. Here you can see the sequential events that is being taking place. You have the influence. So that is nothing but it can be the wastewater or it can be your fermented broth, anything that is coming, and we are doing a rapid mixing for around 30 seconds to 2 minutes. And then we are taking it into the flocculation tank and then we are doing to the sedimentation and the filtration. So in the influence, first what we are doing is we are adding the coagulant. And then we are doing the rapid mixing here, where you can see the rapid mixing is taking place here. So this tank, we can call it as a coagulation tank. So in the coagulation tank, you are doing the coagulation process. What will be forming during the coagulation? Where you can see in this image, the repulsive forces are being neutralized and they will be forming a small floc. The floc aggregation will be taking place. What you will be naming for this floc? Microfloc. Exactly. Yeah. So the microfloc formation will be taking place. Now you are taking into the next tank that is called as the flocculation tank. In the flocculation tank, what you are doing, you are giving a mild mixing here. Why we are giving a mild mixing? In the coming slide, we will understand. Now that we will be giving for 20 to 45 minutes. And we also sometimes incorporate flocculating agents, which will be acting as a bridging material, and formation of macroflocs will be taking place. Then we will be taking to the sedimentation tank or we will be taking the alternative techniques like filtration or centrifugation to remove these macroflux. So this is an article which is talking about the yeast flocculation, sedimentation and flotation. I think this is been published in 2018. Yeah, 2018 it is been published, which is talking about the recycle of the yeast. See, in the alcoholic beverage industries, the recycling of yeast is very much required. So for that, what they are employing is how they are achieving the recycling of yeast is through the flocculation. So in this article, they are talking about two types of yeast cells. One is about the flocculating type and the non-flocculating type. So they are telling that some cells, some yeast cells it has a genetic capacity, it has an inherent capacity to flocculate themselves. That is why when you do the any alcoholic beverage production, whether it is wine production or beer production, what happens is some yeast strains, they flocculate themselves. They come and settle down if a gentle agitation is not being provided. So such strains, we call it as a flocculating strain. But there are another group, they are non-flocculating. Here, they are explaining in another theory, which is called as a lectin theory of flocculation in yeast. So what it says is, for example, you consider this as a flocculating strain of an yeast. This flocculating strain of yeast will be synthesizing the lectin protein. Okay, this will be synthesizing the lectin protein, and this lectin protein will be interacting with either the glucose or the mannose that is present on the outer cell wall of the adjacent yeast cell. Okay, so you will be having the lectin protein that is coming and interacting with the mannan site. This is the mannan site, and you have the protein site also. So it will be either interacting with the mannan or the glucose containing sites on their cell wall, and they will be causing the two cells to come in contact. So the cell aggregation will be taking place there. And they also say that this kind of lectin aggregation requires the presence of Ca2+ ions. So calcium is very much essential. So they are also telling that this is a reversible process. By removing the Ca2+, we can break this kind of aggregation. It's an interesting article. So what is the mechanism that you can see during the entire process of flocculation? There are different mechanisms that you will be able to see that is leading to the floc formation. One is the surface charge neutralization by the addition of ionic compound, ionic salt, which is causing the bridging, especially like the Ca2+ linkages that is going to take place. Or when you add the aluminum alum, what is going to happen? The aluminum sulfate, when you are going to add, what is going to take place? Or sometimes it may be you are adding a polyelectrolyte. A polyelectrolyte you are adding, and that is causing the bridging, where you are sometimes using synthetic charged polymers. We will be discussing some of the examples in the coming slide for that. Or it can be a polymer entrapment, where you are using a long chain polymers, which will be causing the entrapment of the smaller solid particles or the cell particles. Or it can be a physical interaction, and the cells will be forming the pellets, where I was talking to you like in the case of yeast, some are flocculating type. They will be forming the physical interaction, and the pellet formation will be taking place. Or it can be a combination of chemical-physical methods. Like first there will be a coagulation followed by a flocculation will be taking place, which involve the surface chemical interactions and the agglomerization after lysis. So all these can be the reasons, one or another reasons for the formation of flocs. Okay, so these are when you do any type of flocculation, your reaction can be classified into any of these groups. So this is a schematic which is indicating the entire process of flocculation. As I mentioned, first we will be starting with your fermented broth. The fermented broth will be taken into a coagulation tank, where you'll be adding the coagulant and we are doing the flash mixing. The flash mixing we will be doing here. So what will happen here? The surface charges will be neutralized and the cells will be aggregating and the microflocs will be formed. And it will be taken into the next tank where we'll be adding the flocculant and we are doing the slow mixing here. Now what will happen? The macroflocs will be formed. The visible flocs will be formed, which can actually sediment. So now how we can remove these visible flocs from our liquid broth? Any method. It can be like decantation we can do, or flotation we can do, filtration we can do, or we can do the centrifugation. And ultimately you will be getting your clarified broth, which is free of these kind of solid or cells. Now, what kind of materials can be used as a flocculating agent? Flocculating agents are nothing but they are also called as the flocculant, flocculating agent or flocculant. These are chemicals that will be promoting the flocculation by causing the aggregation of colloids and forming the flocs. I told you at the beginning when we are discussing about the yeast, there are two types of yeast cell. One are flocculating type and another which are non-flocculant type. So some cells, as I mentioned, they are naturally flocculant, but there are another category which require the flocculation, we need to, though they are flocculant, their property may be weak, but we need to enhance it by the addition of flocculating agent like the calcium chloride. More details of flocculating agents are being given in this slide. The next slide also will be talking about the flocculation agent itself. So few flocculating agents, especially the inorganic flocculating agent that can be used with bacteria, yeast and algae are like, as I mentioned, alum can be a source, or it can use like calcium salt, calcium oxide we can use, or you can use the ferric salt like the ferric sulfate or ferric chloride. So these kind of inorganic flocculants we can use, like aluminum sulfate, nothing but the alum, or calcium oxide we can use, ferrous sulfate we can use, or ferric chloride we can use. All these falls under the category of inorganic. Now, when we discuss about the polymeric, I was discussing about this, the polymeric flocculants. Polymeric flocculants, again, there are three categories of polymeric flocculants. One is the non-ionic and anionic and cationic. Few examples for non-ionic include the polyethylene oxide, polyvinyl alcohol. These two falls under the category of non-ionic. Under the cationic, you have polyethylene, enamine, and polydiallyl dimethyl ammonium chloride. So these are examples of the cationic flocculants. Similarly, sodium polystyrene sulfonate is an example of anionic. So this way, there are different types of flocculating agents. Depending upon the process, we need to standardize which flocculating agent can be added and what should be their dose and what should be the condition. For examples, or you can do a classification into another manner like synthetic and natural. Under the natural categories, you can use alginate or starches or cellulose. Under the cellulose, the CM cellulose, carboxymethyl cellulose, or the chitosans, which is a chitin. So all these things we can use as a natural source. Or under the polyelectrolytes, you can think about the polyacrylamide, the different form of the polyacrylamide you can think about as a synthetic polyelectrolyte. All these can be used as a flocculating agent. So normally, initial step is the coagulation and the flocculation, where you can see here during the coagulation, the aggregation is going to take place. During the flocculation, the visible flocs, the blue color one indicates, these are all our cells. The blue one are forming the flocs here. And then we can separate them using sedimentation, or you can separate them using the filtrations. So here, when we talk about the use of flocculating agent, the various parameters need to be considered there. The one thing is what kind of material can be used as a flocculating agent. So the flocculating agent, what you are going to use should be non-toxic. The non-toxic to the handler, non-toxic to the system in which you are going to use. So it should be non-toxic. And it should be easily available and the cost also should be less. So through that we can reduce the production cost. And it should not affect the further processing. So these are some of the aspects that we need to take care when you are doing the selection of the floculating agent. Similarly, it needs to be tested in which dose we have to use. What should be the amount of flocculant that you need to add into the flocculation tank? At which pH the flocculation will be taking place at the maximum. So we need to standardize the optimal conditions. And what is the size of flocculant that is going to form? Based upon that, a method of separation we can think about, whether we need to use a nanofiltration or microfiltration, etc. Now, how we are going to measure the formation of flocculation? In the laboratory, the jar experiment is a common experiment that we do to measure the flocculation. And to quantify the jar experiment, there are n number of methods to measure the flocculation. One is the settling rate. You can find out what is the settling rate of the macroflocs that you can find out. The turbidity can be measured. So you can think about a turbidometer, or you can use the spectrophotometer to measure the turbidity of the solution. And you can also measure the particle size and number. So these are the various methods through which you can measure the formation of flocculant, the macroflocs, during the process of flocculation. So as I mentioned, flocculation is a first stage of treatment. Now, you can see here, normally flocculation is used as a pre-treatment. Why as a pre-treatment? To improve the separation efficiency and reduce the equipment cost. Especially the flocculation is a pre-treatment before filtration as well as before centrifugation. So normally when you do the filtration, these microorganisms, they can go and settle on the pores of the filter and cause the clogging. Okay. So to avoid that, what we can do is we can do such kind of pre-treatment like flocculation so that their size will be large, so they cannot go and settle in the pore of the filter. Similarly, when you do the centrifugation, when the particle density are more, easily they will sediment. So here, when you do the flocculation as a pre-treatment, the density of particle increases. So automatically, the time required for centrifugation, you can gradually reduce. Through this manner, we can improve the efficiency of separation and reduce the equipment cost. See, otherwise, when you talk about the filtration, the filter cloth, we may need to change continuously due to the clogging. So when you do the flocculation, we can reduce that equipment cost. But what is required? We need to develop the flocculation process and optimize it to make it cost effective. So these two should happen side by side. Is it? One side we are telling that flocculation is a method to reduce the equipment cost. To improve, it will be helping to improve the separation efficiency. But at the same side, on another side, what we are talking is, what we have to consider is, we need to develop the flocculation process and need to optimize it. So development of and optimization is very much essential. So this slide, I'll tell you what are the parameters that we need to consider when you do the optimization. So this is a graph which is indicating about the different events during the flocculation. So this is the first event, that is the coagulation. So when you add the coagulation, the fines will be formed. That is the microflocs will be formed. Now there is a particular time at which the macro flokes are being formed. Now remember, during the macro floke formation, we are adding the flocculant and also we are doing a gentle mixing. But there will be, when the mixing speed, the agitation speed is more, or when the duration is more, what will happen is the mixing can also lead into the breakage of these flokes. That also will happen. It will break the flock. You remember the agitation normally in fermentation is used to remove the agglomerization. Is it? So here that possibility is there. When agitation time exceeds, it will break the flock. So what we need to do is we need to identify this optimal time where more amount of flock when it will be formed. And then only you can make the steps to efficient flocculation process. So what are the things that you need to consider are, one is flocculant type. What type of flocculant we need to use and what is the effective concentration what we have to use. So that we need to screen it. And impact of process parameters on the flow, like effect of temperature, effect of pH, effect of concentration of flocculant, even the mixing intensity, the shear stress, mixing time, the dosing rate, the flocculant concentration, the dosing location, the solid concentration, particle size. All these aspects need to be taken into consideration, and we need to develop a standardized protocol to optimize all these parameters. So we need to optimize the mixing intensity, we need to optimize the mixing time, the dosing rate, concentration of flocculant, the temperature, the pH, all these need to be taken into consideration when you do the optimization studies. So this is the last slide for today's discussion, which is summarizing about the different events that is going to take place during the formation of flokes. There are possibilities of charge neutralization. When the charge neutralization is there, normally I told we will be adding the coagulating agent. So a kind of chemical interaction is going to happen here, and which will be making the molecule to aggregate. Or it is another process called sweep coagulation, which will be making it a little more efficient. Or we will be doing the bridging, where we are adding the polyvalent materials. It can be a polyelectrolyte. So which will be causing the bridging between the molecule. Or it can be a patch type of flocculation that is going to take place. So these are the hypotheses which is being discussed in this particular research article when they are using the functionalize the nanocellulose in the wastewater treatment. So you can read more from this particular research article, which is present in the research gate. So you'll get more detail about this. So these are the references. For further reading, you can use any of these textbooks. And few web references also been made, which is already been mentioned in all the slides when we are talking about images. We might have seen the image courtesies. So thank you. If you have any questions, please do ask me. Any questions?